Welcome to Sally Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Sally Arkell-Boles, and I'm your success and mindset mentor. And I believe that you deserve to create wealth, success, and the life that you've always desired. And my passion lies in helping you to break through the barriers to success, to provide you with the tools to create your dreams and mentor you on how to achieve your goals so that you can live your best life. And my podcast is designed to inspire, educate, and motivate you to success. My guests are leaders in their field and have incredible stories to share with you. And today, I am so excited to introduce you to Vaishali Shah, and she is currently in Dubai. Now, I talked about the leaders that I love to have on my show, and she is just incredible. We've had an opportunity to meet recently, but I'm so impressed by what she has been able to create and the ideas that came to her that created whole new businesses when she wasn't even expecting it. And so this is going to be a really fun conversation because not only is she an award-winning entrepreneur, she runs two successful businesses that she's owned for over 20 years. She's creative. She runs a creative ID and branding and marketing consultancy. And she also has an Anya cards. Is that how we pronounce it? Sorry.
Ananya cards. Perfect.
And that's a wedding and event stationery business. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be so much fun to talk about that one. But she really strives to have a positive impact, both on her clients' businesses, but also on the wider part of the world. And she donates 10% of her profits to charity, and she's an advisor for several charities worldwide. She's got lots of other things to share with us, and we'll put up her full bio when we get into the posting of this podcast. But she is just a go-getter. She's been raised in an entrepreneurial family. So I'm really excited about this because most of my guests have moved from their jobs into entrepreneur. So this is going to be a really different conversation that we have in the past because I'm interested in finding out more about coming from a family of entrepreneurs as role models. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, so thank you very much, Sally, for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk to your audience. So thank you for that. Thank you. So so I come from an entrepreneurial family. So that's my father, his brother, and my grandfather, and now kind of my brother and I as third generation. We're also fellow entrepreneurs. So it was something that I was brought up with. I say it's kind of in my DNA. Across the breakfast table, dinner table, we'd be talking business. And it was something that I learned from a young age, and it's kind of paved my way. So coming from that entrepreneurial family, so kind of taking influence and inspiration from the entrepreneurs in my family, but also me being me, wanting to kind of create my own path as well, and my own lane and my own direction. So that's been very interesting.
So what were some of the things that were discussed over that breakfast table that got you interested in wanting to also follow that path?
Yes, so it was kind of how to kind of make your money work. So as children, my brother and I were given, pocket money, and how to kind of make that money work, whether that was through using the money to buy ingredients for cakes, and then selling those as at the school bake sale, things like that. But one thing that was really important that was really kind of drummed into us was about giving back and making a difference. So that was something from a really young age, about helping others, whether that's friends, now kind of it's friends, colleagues, clients, but at that time it was helping school friends. My father kind of introduced us to the notion of charity and philanthropy and what that meant, and helping people that are less fortunate than us. So that's something that's definitely carried through in my life. So yes, making business, running a business, successful business, making money, important, but also the side of giving back, which is why for the last 23 years I've been donating 10% of my profits back to charity to help those others that need it.
So tell me a little bit about your charities, and what are the ones that you've chosen to support and why? Because that's a really important piece as an individual entrepreneur or anybody that's wanting to donate. It's usually around something that you have a lot of passion for. So do you mind sharing that?
No, of course, of course. So as a family, we have a charitable foundation, which has been running for many, many years. And so from my grandfather's point of view, who kind of set up the foundation, it was health and education. Those were his two kind of key points. So we have built over 100 schools, hospitals, orphanages, medical colleges. So in that kind of health and education. So that was something that was very important. And I've kind of brought in the women angle, the female angle, because as a female entrepreneur, that was something that was really important to me. So I've looked at causes that help women, whether that's female farmers in Africa and India, whether that's female students. So, for example, I'm on the board of a charity called LEAP, and that's helping children from disadvantaged backgrounds, so around the world, teaching them business skills. And so I give my time to kind of to help fundraising for that, but also they have a 2-week summer school. So I go to, it's in Jersey in the Channel Islands. So I fly there and I sit with the students and kind of mentor them and talk to them about business and share my skills, because I just think if I can give them that little bit of confidence that they can do it and they've got an idea and how to kind of take that idea forward. So that's something that I particularly enjoy. So I've kind of brought the women angle. And one of your questions, which is really important, is to kind of how to choose a charity. So for me, it's about looking at the impact that that charity makes. I actually prefer kind of smaller charities because I feel sometimes they're not so well known. So I try to support smaller charities where I've met the owner or the trustees, so that I actually can have a face-to-face conversation, not just look at a shiny website, but actually meet the people behind the charity to see about the difference that the charity's making. And I also look at how much of a donation goes to the charity and how much actually goes into admin, because for me it's really important. So let's say out of, I'll use English currency, so let's say out of £1, so 100 pence, I kind of favor charities where only 10 pence is going to admin and the rest is going to the charity. Because there are charities where a lot of money is spent on fancy TV ads and glossy brochures, and actually it's only a small percentage that goes to the charity. So for me, the way I look at it is I want to make as much impact as possible. So I kind of look at smaller charities and where the money is less on the admin, but more kind of on the ground.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important element of it, because there are so many charities to be able to contribute to. And we all know some of the big names that are out there, but there's so many other charities that are in, you know, smaller or development that definitely have more, like you said, more impact in their community, or more impact to the people that they serve. So I love that you brought that up. So thank you very much. But what I'm hearing so far is you've really had an amazing education from a young girl on money management and what to do with your money and how to actually bring it, you know, how to actually bring it forward to create more money. And then also to be able to give back to charities in a way that also creates more abundance coming to you and to those other people. So a lot of people have not grown up in that kind of environment where they've been educated from a young age to buy those cake ingredients and then to create some income from it. So what would you say is the biggest element for you that's helped you to be able to live that in your life and to just accept it as normal? Because oftentimes when it's just brought in through childhood, it's accepted as normal. But most people, as you probably see around you, a lot of people have not been raised that way. So they're not familiar on how to manage their money the same way that you have. So I'm interested in your perspective and what you've seen.
Yes, so I'm very fortunate. I certainly know that. Very blessed to have that kind of real life understanding and seeing it firsthand from a young age. And I think a lot of people, Sally, think that charity begins kind of when we've made our money, when we've retired, and they think it's like later when we're 70, 80 plus. But the way I've been brought up and the way I kind of believe is that actually charity begins as early as you want to. And charity is not just giving money, it's also giving your time. It's sharing your contact. So it could be, for example, there's a leprosy charity, Lepra, that I support. And just by sharing their posts on social media just means that my audience get to hear about the charity. I'm not saying they need to support it, but it's sharing the awareness. Now, that doesn't take time, that doesn't take money. So there's a way of kind of introducing or kind of sharing that awareness of charity. So I find that's something useful, and it's just that mindset that actually it's not just about money. Of course money is great, but charities also need help. Like I help with their design and marketing on a pro bono basis. So it could be, you know, if you've got a skill, you may be a lawyer, you may be good at HR, you may just want to volunteer because you've got a Saturday weekend free and you want to just, you know, help a charity. So I think for me, it's not thinking about charity that it's later on in life, but it's actually whatever you can do now, whether it's financial or non-financial, but just kind of having that commitment and choosing, going back to what we said earlier, choosing a cause that's meaningful for you. It could be your, you know, the school you went to or your children go to, or it could be children, or it could be health, it could be nature, it could be planting trees. You know, there's so many causes, and especially during lockdown, a lot of the smaller charities did suffer. You know, they found it difficult. So it's kind of helping that way. So that's kind of my message, is that actually you don't need to wait till later on, and it doesn't need to be financial. You can help in many ways.
And volunteering, a lot of people will volunteer, and there's lots where you can actually take your children and expose them to that when they're young. And I think that makes a big difference as well, because a lot of families don't talk about money, right? And typically, from what I know, I used to work in finance, wealthy people are very comfortable talking about money, whereas people that are struggling do not talk about money. And so this is a way for us to be able to educate and give back, and also to be able to really make sure that we're being, like you said, in the making a difference in the world for those charities, because every person that we touch through those charities can definitely make a big impact. So thank you for sharing that, because I really love your perspective on it, and it's really nice to see. So now tell me about your businesses. What made you get into the businesses that you chose?
So I've always been interested in design and marketing. My degree at university was international management and French, and I specialized in marketing. So my family business background is finance, which is like a foreign language to me. So so I knew that I wanted to kind of do something in the creative space. So that's why my first business, Creative ID, which is my branding and marketing agency. So that's you know, working with clients, helping them with their logo design, their branding, their social media graphics, anything that's kind of graphics, visual identity based, and also then helping them use that branding investment and elevate themselves, get noticed, get visible through marketing. And then my wedding and event stationery started by chance. My cousin got married and I designed her wedding stationery as a gift for her. Didn't put my name on it, nothing, it was a gift. And then at the end of the wedding, 3 people came up to me and said, "Oh, Vaishali, we heard you designed the stationery." So I was like, "Yes." They said, "Oh, we're engaged. Will you design our stationery?" So I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I thought, okay, well, here's a gap in the market. Let me look at that. The skills are transferable. It's still, you know, designing for corporates versus now designing for couples. So I did about 6 months research, and then I set up the separate business, Ananya Cards, for the stationery. So the creativity has kind of always been there.
Awesome. So I think I love that you just said that I just did something as a gift, and then it turned into a business. Because how often do we overthink going into a business and then never have it come to fruition, when it was just a gift that you gave without any expectation, and then the opportunity showed up. And I think from a mindset perspective, that's a lot of, you know, what we need to do is to just trust and believe and just do something because you want to, and then goodness comes back. It always flows back to you, right? And then you saw that as an opportunity. You said, well, gee, I can do this. And so you created a second business. So now what's it like? Because I know both you live in both London and Dubai, and you run two businesses. So tell me what it's like to run two international businesses, because this isn't just a little thing that you're running, right? Like this is a major international businesses. So tell me a little bit more about how you handle that.
Yes. So I don't sleep much. I manage time differences, and I going back to the other point, it's the passion. I was passionate about design. I'm passionate about my businesses, and I think as an entrepreneur, there's no 9 to 5. You know, you work longer hours. You're passionate about what you do. So for me, it's very much running both businesses in both locations. I'm passionate about it. And also I need careful kind of time management to manage the time zones, to manage the projects. I do have a team. I have a fantastic team. First 2 years of the business, couldn't afford anyone. I did everything myself. But now I have a team. And that was something that my father taught me a long time ago about, he always used to say, delegate, delegate, delegate. So if there are things that you're not good at, or if there are things that you don't have the time for, or there's somebody better to do it, then kind of delegate. So for me, from day one, I delegated my accounts. As a creative, I'm not good with the accounts. So of course I oversee everything, but I hired, a bookkeeper, an accountant from day one. And then after 2 years, I took on some designers. So that's important to have a team, but it's not easy. I'm not going to pretend and say, oh, it's very simple. It is a challenge. For example, I have to, because I'm newer in Dubai, I've only been here just over a year, I have to network a lot. I have to get known. In London, I'm more established, but here I was setting up. So it's networking. It's whether that's online, whether that's in person, building up my connections, which is really important. It's also investing. This year, I've kind of invested in kind of international conferences and conventions to get myself visible. So it does kind of take time, and I'm trying to make my businesses, the websites, my social media international, that it's reflects the different cultures, reflects different customs, because I think certainly since COVID, a lot of the world became online and our marketplace became bigger. And so I want to be respectful and sensitive and embrace all different cultures that are kind of visiting my social media, visiting my websites. So that's it. But it's I love it, but it's also every day is learning what works, what doesn't work, monitor, review.
And I like how you talked about at the beginning, how you got the people in place that you needed right away to just sort of manage the money for you, to take care of that piece of it. And then you worked through for a couple of years and then started adding team where you felt you needed to add team. And I think a lot of us struggle with, oh, I'm starting a business and I've got to wear all those hats. And yet we don't make the progress as fast because we're doing that. And today we have the option of having virtual assistants and having people, doing a little bit of work at a time, like based off of time, as opposed to being a full-time employee. So when did you actually step into, was it in that second year that you stepped into having full-time people on your team, or did they come in as just part-time? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so they started part-time in the second year and then kind of full-time probably in the fifth year, year 5. So they kind of started part-time, then it became more on a retainer basis, 3 days a week before it came full-time.
Yeah, because that's important to understand as well, because most entrepreneurs are, hesitant to bring anybody in, figuring that they need to offer them that full-time. But I think there's so many people, and with our digital nomad type of culture now, to be able to get the best people from around the world to come in to work with you. And, what I found is that it really shrinks the time that, like, they don't need as much time as I do to do that job because they're so much better at it than I am. So it might be somebody that's doing all the graphics for my social media, and they can condense it in such a small period of time. For me, that would take a much longer time. And I think as a business owner, you need to be cognizant of that element as well. And then also that you can bring them in gradually over time and then eventually hire your team full time. So now, how big is your team today?
So at the moment there's six of
Okay.
us, but then as and when I take on various people. So I have a tech VA, not part of my team, but I have a tech VA for when I need some tech help. So yes. So I will also, again, because everything costs, so I want to be mindful of my team, and as and when I need different people. And going back to your point, everyone has specialities. So for example, for one client in the US, he does a lot on YouTube, and I'm not a YouTube expert, but it's not worth it for one client to hire somebody just for YouTube. So I bring that person in for this client, X number of hours per month, and then that's it. And that's how, going back to your point, how you can get the best of people. So whether you need somebody for the tech, then they can come on the tech. If you need somebody for the kind of just admin or payroll or things like that, you bring those people in.
Yeah.
And of course, and having a success coach is, a lot of this is mindset. So again, when you asked about how I manage this, it's the mindset as well. And I'm sure, that's what you do, and, helping your clients with the mindset and, showing them the potential to be successful and to have a rewarding life.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs too, they think, well, if I give up some of the income, then I won't be able to survive. But I think today we have that option to look at it way differently than we did in the past, where people aren't necessarily looking for full-time jobs anymore. They are looking for bringing their expertise and focused expertise to whoever they're working with. And I think that's one of the advantages that's come out in the last probably 4 to 5 years, is that we have that option to find the best people and to have them come in and work for projects, to work for different elements within our business. But and that also, as we're bringing people in full-time into our career, it's a whole different model for employees versus having contractors, I'll call them. So I think that's important for entrepreneurs to understand as well. So tell me, what's been the biggest highlight of your career?
Wow. Biggest highlight of my career. I think actually for the Ananya business was getting into Harrods. So having my greeting card stocked in Harrods, I tried 2 years, unsuccessful, sent my letter in, sent my samples, got a very polite letter back saying, we don't think there's a need for your cultural cards. And on the third year, perseverance again, on the third year, I wrote to them, and again with new samples, and they wrote back and said, please come in for a meeting, because we feel that actually we need to be culturally aware and not just celebrating Christmas, but we should recognize Chinese New Year, Jewish New Year, Eid, Diwali, all these other celebrations. So I went in for the meeting, scariest meeting of my life, and but really successful. And I've been stocked at Harrods for 8 years. So that was a real highlight, because it was the perseverance, third time lucky, and also that it was something new. They didn't have this category of celebration cards. So it's actually also that education piece of why I felt being, Harrods in melting pot London of cultures, that actually they should be embracing other cultures. So there was also that education piece. So I'd say that was a highlight of my career.
That's awesome. And so what I'm hearing too is I sent it to them once and they said no. Then I sent it to them again the next year and they said no. And then the third year, they were already familiar with you. And so when it came to making, that when they saw that third one coming, they said, oh yeah, I remember her. Because that's what people do. They'll remember who that person was, and they'll say, well, this is the one that, she's already come to us and she's got it already, they know you're in business long-term. You're not just flipping in all of a sudden as well. And that makes a difference to a big organization like that. They want to know that you've got stability, but at the same time, you're finding that opportunity and not giving up and still asking for what you're wanting. And I love that, because that perseverance is what a lot of people don't follow through with. And I know from the people that I work with, and having watched a lot of people in the corporate world, is that we, as entrepreneurs, will drive and drive and drive till we get to a certain point, and then we just don't see that we're getting the success we want, and we leave just before that next big thing comes in. So I want to, caution people to stick and stay with what your dream is and what you're wanting for, because that perseverance is the difference between the successful people and the ones that aren't having success. And so we think, oh, they probably don't want to hear from us.
Exactly.
And so we give up. So that's awesome. I love that piece of it. So now, what would be your number one piece of advice to any entrepreneur that is stepping into the business, but then also wants to grow to add another business? So let's talk about the first one, getting into business. First of all, what would be your biggest advice for people?
So I'd say really be committed to it, even if you're doing it part-time and you've still got a full-time job, but be committed to it, because it is hard work. There's going to be unexpected challenges, however much we like to plan, and we may have a marketing plan, a business plan. Look at COVID, things happen that that are not planned for. So I would say be prepared to work hard, be committed, be passionate about what you do. Because then it makes putting in the hours so much more enjoyable, because it's something that you want to do. So I would say do it. And the thing I always say to people is try it. I speak to so many people and they say, oh, Vaishali, we want to start a business. I was like, great, we have a chat. And then the next year, oh, what happened? Oh, well, we're still thinking about it. And 4 years later, they're still thinking about it. So I think if you really want to do it, then do go for it, because there's no kind of perfect time. I think if you've got the main things in order, I think go for it, because sometimes you can almost overthink it and then actually talk yourself out of running a business. So I would say do it, but you again, be cautious. As I said, you may want to keep your full-time job and do this start at the weekends, or you may make your full-time job 3 days a week and then you take this on for 2 days a week. But I think if you are interested in doing it, then go for it.
Yeah. And I think, I know for a fact that a lot of people have these desires deep within inside of them, but they just don't have the belief in themselves that they can make it work. And so a lot of what I do as well is helping them to actually discover what's very deep inside, and
very important,
and helping them along that path. And almost everybody has everybody does have a bigger vision than what they're living. And so it's really fun to explore that. And I see that in just the joy that you bring forward and the energy that you bring forward, is that, this is something that you created, and you have that success, and you're living your dream, and you have the opportunity to live in different places in the world, with what you're doing with your business. And you've created new businesses along the way that you never thought were going to be businesses. And so I really appreciate that about you. But then the philanthropy is kind of the icing on the cake, because as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, our hearts are what really matter in what we're doing. And so being able to give back to the community in some way, and worldwide, it sounds like you're giving back worldwide with what you're doing. That just lights you up, because as soon as you said that, you light up.
Yes.
And, I see that value in you as far as what you're bringing forward. So now tell us a little bit more specifically about your branding business and what a client could expect and what type of clients you're working with.
Perfect. So business is creative ID. My kind of tagline is aspirational branding and marketing for inspirational brands. So I work with clients from Michelin star chefs to hotel chains, to personal stylists, to female business coaches. It's all, it's quite varied, kind of from food, hospitality, lifestyle, professional services, but it's about getting them noticed, getting them visible, having their branding all consistent and across. One of the things I love talking about is touch points. So a lot of people think like, oh, I've got a great logo, that's it. But actually, no, there's so many touch points that you have with a customer. Yes, there's your logo. Yes, there's your website. But there's so many other things. There's your packaging, there's your signage, there's the way you dress at a meeting, it's the way, the pen you use, the notebook you use, it's the email signature that you have, it's your uniform, it's the way you answer the phone. it's so many of these touch points that help create the whole brand experience. And branding is emotional. If you look at Apple and you look at a lot of the successful brands, it's an emotion that you're buying. And for me, I love helping clients look at all those touch points so it's consistent and to create that whole kind of branding experience. So that's something that I like to help with. And then on the marketing side, it's basically getting clients, again, getting them noticed. So whether it's through their social media, whether it's through event management, whether it's through partnerships and collaborations. I'm very big on collaborations and, collaborating with others, and really kind of getting them visible, because the world is so noisy. There's so many businesses. So it's actually how to get you to stand out for the right reasons and to the right people, because again, you may not want to target yourself. I'm a believer also in niching. So you don't want to be the designer for everybody, because that's really difficult. But whether you niche in a specific area, so whether it's success coaching or female entrepreneurs or food and hospitality, it's looking at what the right kind of audience is for you.
I think that's one of the trickiest parts.
Yes.
Niching.
Yes.
And that's where a brand consultant like yourself comes in really well, because you can really ask the right questions, get them to ask the right questions, do surveys or whatever they need to do to really niche down. Because at the end of the day, what I found is that the clients that show up for me are all very similar. So it's easy for me to determine my niche because they all have similarities in common, and I'm attracting a certain type of person. So that makes it easier for me to niche in when I actually pay attention to who the people are that I'm attracting, and take my attention away from the ones that don't fit in that demographic or fit within what their area is of expertise. So it's very interesting when you actually step out from the corporate world or from what and you start to understand that it's not just something for everybody.
No.
And then build from there. So
exactly. And with your clients, there's something that resonates with you, which is why you're attracting those similar clients. So yes, very much so.
Absolutely. So now, any other tips or tricks about becoming an entrepreneur or about philanthropy that you wanted to share with the audience today?
I'd say one thing is learning from your mistakes. I think that's important. So nothing is going to go plain sailing, sadly. There will be mistakes along the way, but it's how you cope with those mistakes. And for me, those mistakes are an opportunity to learn. So for example, I didn't have any legal contracts when I started my work. I did 2 branding projects, raised my invoice, so completed the work, raised my invoice, and both clients didn't pay, but they had all the branding work. And I realized very quickly then that I need a legal contract, a legal document to have everything in place, get my 50% money up front. So I learned the hard way by not having contracts. So I think that's the thing. If you have a mistake, that's fine. Brush yourself off, learn from it, and take yourself forward. So I'd say that's something important. And then what I said earlier about delegating, look at what you are good at, look at what you're not good at, or what's taking you a lot of time for, and see if there's someone that can fill those gaps for you and to help you.
Okay, that's great advice, because I think a lot of people don't want to approach either an accountant or a lawyer at the beginning to get the legal documents to protect yourself, because we are businesses and we need to make sure we're acting like a business. And sometimes you need to budget ahead of time to have those expenses so that you're covered, because the loss that you can experience by not being covered can be quite dramatic. And people will, can actually take your material if you're just an online presenter, right? So you want to make sure you're protecting yourself. So definitely do seek that advice from the professionals if you're going to be a business owner. And seeking advice doesn't cost typically. It's taking the action with those people that's going to cost you. So do your research. I think that's a great opportunity for a lot of people to hear that, especially from such a successful entrepreneur like yourself, because that would have been devastating for a lot of people to have lost all that money from having done the work because people just chose not to pay their bills. And at the beginning, you're counting on that money.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And those are my first 2 clients. So I was like, oh my gosh, like that's really unlucky to happen twice. And also, even within legal, within HR, again, you don't need to go to a large company, you know, just somebody that has the knowledge. So as a startup, I started with a much, you know, a one-person bookkeeper, and now I'm in a larger firm as my business has grown. So again, you know, there should be accountants and lawyers at different budgets, you know, so it can suit you as a solopreneur, as a startup, and then, you know, you may want to change, you know, later on.
Absolutely. And I think that that's great advice, because we don't want to wear those hats. We really don't want to wear those hats because we're not the experts. And so they'd be able to guide us very quickly and easily on what to do. And I love that you said, you know, when I got my business to a certain level, I also changed who my providers were, or who my support was for that. So that's awesome. So I really appreciate your time today. It's been beautiful. Go check her website out. Make sure that you check Vaishali's. I found you on Instagram. Her Instagram account's great. She does work with a lot of very large brands, so she's very qualified to help so many people, and her work is just beautiful. So, oh, you know what? We should talk a little bit more about your card business that you're doing for the Indo culture, I would presume, because they have such large, beautiful weddings. So tell us a little bit about that before we sign off.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So my other business is Ananya Cards, and designing stationery, which is rich in culture and personality. So a lot of multicultural celebrations, whether it's a multicultural wedding, or a significant festival, whether it's, you know, a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, Jewish New Year, Chinese New Year. But for me, it's understanding the culture of the couple, of the corporate client, and reflecting that culture or cultures, if it's multicultural, into beautiful stationery. So for me, I'm very much kind of the pro kind of diversity, inclusion. I give talks on that. It's about being sensitive and respectful and honoring different cultures. So I love that when a couple comes to me and says, you know, I'm half Polish and I'm half Japanese, like, what can you do? And it's actually like, for me, it's my job to understand what's important to both cultures, and then creating something that both families are happy with. So so that's something that I love as well.
Oh, look at the smile. You just light up when you talk about the creative aspects of your business, the people you're serving. So,
as I said, numbers is not my thing. Numbers is not my thing.
No, be creative. Live in the creative world. So now, how can people find you? I just mentioned a couple of things, but how would they be able to find you?
Yes, so please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. So if you just look up Vaishali Shah, FCIM, those are my fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing qualifications. So Vaishali Shah, FCIM, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. And on social media, so for Creative ID, my handle is Creative ID Social on Facebook and Instagram. And for Ananya Cards, the stationery business, it's Ananya Cards for Facebook and Instagram. So I'd love to connect with you. If there's any advice anybody needs, please, I'm, you know, very happy to share anything that I've learned on my kind of 23-year journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You're just the beauty and the kindness just pours from you. You just have such a fabulous energy about you, and I really love that, because I just see that the passion that you bring to your business and to your life and to the people that you get to serve is what keeps you going. And I can just tell that from the joy that it brings you and working with your clients. So thank you so much for joining us today and to share that full entrepreneurial journey from being a young girl right through till today. And I really wish you so much success as you continue on this journey. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Sally. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of share my entrepreneurial journey with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a great day.